Hello everyone, welcome to the GeoEcologist. I am Dr. Krishnanand and you have been watching my videos on my channel The GeoEcologist on various topics related to geography, environment and research methodology. If you are new to this channel, please go to the playlist section for the earlier videos. Now, in today's session on political geography, we are going to talk about a very interesting concept that is related to electoral geography. So what is this electoral geography all about? What is its nature, its scope, its today's relevance, and also we are going to look into various concepts and dimensions of electoral geography in today's session. So before we go ahead, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and also if you want to look into our paid courses, you can check our website TheGeoecologist.com, or you can download our app by the same name, The GeoEcologist, from the Play Store and check for yourself the paid courses that we offer. So now let's go ahead and learn. So now let's discuss various concepts related to electoral geography. So as we understand that geography is the science of space, we talk about locational analysis, spatial analysis in geography, and now combination of the spatial analysis with something called the electoral aspect is what we learn here in electoral geography. So electoral geography is supposed to be the branch of political geography in which what do we study? We study the spatial distribution, the spatial patterns of our voters, that is voting patterns, election outcomes, and the relationship between geography and politics combined together. If you observe this particular map of United States of America, it shows 2008 elections and its result. So if you observe, the blue colors represent Democratic, that is Obama's party, and then you have Republican, that is McCain's party, that is by saffron. So if you observe, this gives you a spatial distribution of the voting patterns and how people elect the governments. So this is something which we are looking into, the electoral geography, which has a essentially spatial analysis engraved in its concept. So when we look into the evolution of the subject matter of electoral geography, we understand that there came a change in 1970s after the Cold War, the Vietnam War, and the changing political dynamics of the world. The importance to political aspects and geopolitics was given more, especially in human geography, in political geography in 1970s. So what we observe, there came two groups of scholars. So one who were talking about urban conflicts, which were the major phenomena happening, and it became very important in new urban geography, new urban political geography. And the second group of scholars talked about electoral politics, spatial analysis of electoral politics and patterns, where techniques and quantitative revolution were utilized to analyze the spatial politics. That's where we see that more of the theories and more of these concepts started to develop and occupied the major part in political geography. So if you observe the political geography, we're talking about three different areas. It means the areas of interest. So one is called geography of voting, second is geographical influences in voting, the factors and influencers, and geography of representation. So these three are the building blocks of electoral geography. Now if we observe further the nature of electoral geography, so it's very interesting. If you observe this map of India, the constituencies and the politics associated with it, so we'll see that it's an interdisciplinary science. Why it is interdisciplinary? Because we talk about speciality, and there comes the locational analysis and geography, while the other aspect is from political science. So what we observe, it's a combination subject. So political science, geography, as well as statistics, statistical tools for analysis, gives us the relationship between geography and elections. So elections on one hand and geography on one hand, and then we combine together to make this particular nature of this subject. So it seeks to understand how physical as well as non-physical, which is social, cultural, and several other factors, and how these factors are combined together, and how these factors are very importantly looking into the outcomes related to elections, the results of elections. So electoral districts and influences of the various factors that we talk in this particular nature of political geography in electoral geography. So if you observe the scope of electoral geography, so it has a wide scope across the aspects of elections and political geography together. So some of the key areas areas of study within electoral geography, if you observe, is related to voting behavior of people, redistricting, which means organizing the districts again, and gerrymandering, political polarization, swing states, and several other concepts related to urban as well as rural political geography. But urbanism dominates, and urban political geography dominated in 1970s, and then it took over the entire areas from urban to rural. So it also examines the impact of geography on political parties and distribution of political power on space. This is what is the scope. So what you observe here is that evolution of electoral geography, if you see, it has evolved over time. And this is not new if you observe the history of human civilization. Right from the age of empires and their expansion, their maturity, their deconstruction involved all these politics, but in different ways. But when we see government started to form, and democratic form of government, republican form of government, where voting rights were important, there this geography played a vital role. So if you observe technology, demographics, and political attitude, these three things are the key ingredients or attributes of electoral geography and helped in its evolution. So in the past, the field was primarily concerned with mapping the election results. So if you say in common man's language that what is electoral geography, it gives you a locational and spatial analysis only in terms of results of election, how geographically you can show it on map. But it's not just that. It's not limited to simply demographic data and voting pattern, but it has something else as well. It helps us to understand the nuances of how the decisions are being made, how people get represented. So these are the little things which we cover inside, and now incorporating the statistical tool as well as remote sensing and GIS is coming parallel to this. So GIS analysis gives you a detailed geographic analysis of what's happening on the space. So these kind of maps are being created, and I'm sure during elections and election results, you must observe these maps which you can see across the media houses and representations. So what you observe today, electoral geography is a dynamic field and involves a lot of research and a lot of theoretical practices that we observe here. So elections became more and more complex, and role of geography in shaping these election outcomes, political outcomes, became more vital and is of definitely great relevance in today's world as well. So with every election coming in, we keep looking into this particular spatial analysis as well. That's why we say that electoral geography is really significant in today's world as well. So if you observe, some of the key aspects and theories and concepts in electoral geography is listed here. The first concept that you observe is the electoral districts. So what is it? It's basically, in simple language, the constituencies or voting districts. So these demarcations, if you observe here, in India, 543 Lok Sabha constituencies, if you see here carefully. And what is the percentage of people living in poverty? So in red areas in this map, you can observe a spatial pattern. In blue areas, you can observe spatial pattern. And this is what you say is GIS analysis, including statistics. And it gives you an idea of what's happening in the elections in these particular electoral districts. So what you observe, each electoral district is represented by a single elected official. And for example, a member of parliament, which is MP in short, or a member of legislative assembly who is elected by voters of that particular voters district. So the official represents the interest of these individual constituencies which they represent, and they are responsible for making vital decisions, especially for development and welfare as well as well-being of their subjects in these particular areas that they are elected from. So what you observe, electoral districts can be created based on different criteria. So what could be various criteria? For example, population size, demographic characteristics, or geographical features. This is which demarcates or delineates these constituencies, right? So if you observe carefully, some examples apart from India. So this is United Kingdom, this is United States of America, and I'm sure you can see in these maps, the Scotland area, Northern Ireland, then you have Northeast England, Northwest England, Yorkshire, then you have East Midlands, east of England, West Midlands, Wales, Southwest England, Southeast England. So you see, people representing these areas would obviously advocate the problems and take care of the development of their own representative electoral districts. So in USA also you observe here, what is this blue color representing from the last election where Joe Biden won, which was close You see these yellow portions here, and which Trump won was this. So largely it gives us an idea of what is the spatial variation, right? So if you observe, the second important concept is redistrict. The word is redistrict. It means the districts which are created already, it can be redistricted. It means that redrawing electoral district boundaries in response to the changes of population and demographic factors that is observed on time period, because it's a dynamic phenomena. So there is always a redistricting happening before elections so that the outcomes are more fair. And many times census data is taken as a background. And in India, if you remember, 10 years are the term for every census. So last census happened in 2011 and we are awaited the next census. Then the next important concept, if you observe, is related to the redistricting. It is gerrymandering. Now how it is related? Observe here, the word is manipulation of this electoral district according to political gains. If you plan redistricting and providing gain to someone, then it is called gerrymandering. Many times it's also termed as malpractices of electoral politics, but sometimes it's very important to have the advantage and disadvantage in balance. So somehow gerrymandering has been observed across the world in elections, right? In some states to create districts that favor certain political parties or communities. So many times majority community, minority community, and these electoral games and politics keep happening on space. So this is very important. Then if you observe, in gerrymandering, the idea is to divide the people into districts. This is the basic idea. So natural division, if you observe, of majority and minority is the first one, 60 orange, 40 purple. Then if you want to do a fair gerrymandering, what do? You do something like what is observed here, right? This is supposed to be a fairly organized gerrymandering, but results not proportionate to electorate. If you want to do it, then we observe this kind of gerrymandering, which sometimes favors a particular community or a particular group. So it becomes integral part of our spatial analysis. Then if you observe, the most important part of electoral politics and electoral geography is voting behavior, voters' behavior and their spatial patterns. Now this is the main concern of all political parties across the country. If you observe, from regional to national parties, they keep talking about voter behavior and the factors influencing it. So what is your choice in election? Whom are you going to finally vote? And what are the factors that you take into account? So you could have a party affiliation, ideology affiliation, social and economic factors could be there, geographical location could be there. So if you observe, for example, voters in rural areas may be more likely to vote for a certain political party based on their views of agricultural policies maybe, or maybe according to their caste, religion identities, regional identities. So if you observe this flow diagram, it gives you a gist of the matter. So voters' choice behavior depends upon numerous factors. Some of them could be issue based, some could be emotion based, some could be candidate's image, how good the candidate is. Then you can have a current event in scenario, something happened and how was the response of your candidate. Then personal events could also trigger your voting pattern, social imagery, as well as the knowledge, the epistemic issues, that how knowledge is very important. It means if you have the knowledge about your candidate or not. Do you know the background of the candidate? Do you know what his thought about the development of your own electoral district? These things matter a lot to understand the voter behavior or voting behavior pattern on space. Then if you observe is political polarization, and I'm sure this is a very common word of polarized politics across the world and India. You must have seen it. The division between political parties on basis of certain ideologies, certain ways of thinking, beliefs, policies, and this is very important in electoral geography. So for example, in US, if you see, Republicans and Democratic parties have become increasingly polarized in recent years, right? In India, if you see, Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP and the Indian National Congress becoming dominant political forces in years, and they are also in terms making a polarization of their own voters. So this is a very common practice and it has a spatial pattern to it. That's where electoral geography is concerned. Then if you observe the swing states, it's a very interesting concept. Swing means it's moving to and fro. It could go any side. So uncertainty is the principle here. So outcome of election is considered particularly important or uncertain for these particular states. Some states have clear majority to a given party, but there are some swing states which may favor one party in a particular election and may change its viewpoint. So this is called swing state. So in US presidential elections, you will observe these states: Arizona, North Carolina, Florida, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. They have been termed as swing states, looking into the data of the previous elections. In India, if you observe, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar are considered to be swing states because they have majority of member of parliaments and they have good number of constituencies, and many times the voting pattern keeps shifting in these states, and these two northern Indian states have become very important and dominant since independence in politics of India. So if you observe, political geography of urban areas are becoming more and more important in electoral politics. Why? Because urbanization is the future and most of the people want to become urban. The urbanism, the urban way and urban lifestyle. So what's happening? Geographic distribution of urban populations become very important in electoral politics and its locational and spatial variations. So US, the cities, urban areas tend to be more politically liberal, right, and vote for democratic candidates, while rural areas are more of these Republicans who are more of conservative nature. Similarly, in India, political representation in urban areas can also be influenced by concentration of certain ethnic or religious communities which dominate a particular constituency in a city. And also the developmental forces could matter a lot while choosing your candidate. So these are certain very important things which we observe here. So overall, if you observe this spatial distribution and this spatial politics, and which we study through electoral geography, numerous factors are there, and also the convergence of these external stimuli, which we say different factors, are very important to understand it. So which are these factors? The state supplied information. That's where the epistemological concept comes to the picture, that what is in your hand, what knowledge do you have? That's one. Then you have local and cultural norms. That is very important for people when we go to vote. And then you have religious affiliations as well, economic opportunity, and in today's world, what's looking and changing and controlling virtually all of these elections and their spatial distribution is the role of media. So media representing a particular issue has become really very important, and you may see around yourself that which political party is using the media for its benefit, or it's also using media to actually demean someone else from the other party. So media has become really important role player in our spatial distribution of these elections and its results. So what you observe, the degree of effect of these stimulus is very important to look into the outcomes of the result. So it means outcome is not just by one factor, it's a convergence, it's an agglomeration of factors. So for example, policy dealing with governmental treatment of an urban population would have greater importance to those in a territory with urban density, while it will not be of that importance for people who belong to rural area where you have more of rural space. So this is very important if you observe. So a state or its political organization has some important power to affect these stimuli. So the state control is very important to look into. That is state controlling all these factors. If state is controlling these factors, it means majority of the chances that state will continue to be the way it is and it will be progressing on the same lines that it is. So it's very important to understand the role of these particular variables across the space, and that's why we say electoral geography is having a relevance in present as well as in future, and that's why it's very important to study in political geography. So now, when we have discussed about the various aspects of electoral geography, nature, scope, and various concepts related to it, in the sessions to come, we'll be talking more on other aspects of electoral geography like geography of voting, gerrymandering, and its allied concepts. So stay tuned, stay safe, keep watching and learning, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and please share the videos with others as well.